So during this bit here, you can actually just hold select. This is one of the ATEs where you can just hold select while you're mashing, and it will press it on the first frame for you. It doesn't work on PC, only on PSX. If I just hold select while I'm doing my turbo, nice. We'll fast forward through here. And then the first thing, so we're going to proceed into the first room of the first dungeon. So, there is something worth talking about in this one, is a very special room, of course. Is if you're playing on analog, if you're very specific in your movement, you can skip a check only on this time through the room. And that is because you might have noticed that Zidane had a little walk on his way into this screen. You're not blessed with that the second time you come here. You don't earn danger while you're doing that. In fact, it's probably better that I talk about danger rating first, actually. So, inside of dungeons in this game, where you are faced with random encounters, the way it is managed is based on a danger value. As you move, based on the distance that you move, so for example, if I walked into a wall and didn't move anywhere, my danger value would not increase. It's only based on how much you move. Not the speed, but the distance traveled. All the rooms are different in based on the amount of checks that you get on terms of distance and how much your danger value increases per distance. But just know, the further you travel, the more likely you are to get an encounter. If you are really specific in some of the rooms and you use your analog stick to get around, you can skip encounter checks in certain rooms. I will include a document in the YouTube video linking to Misuto's findings on how and where you can skip these checks. You pretty much always need to use analog to do them. You can do some of them on D-pad, but they are incredibly tight. Just the most important thing you're doing when you're learning this run is don't run around in circles, you fool. Know where you need to go and head in that direction. So I'm going to try and proceed through this room. It's not the end of the world if you get an encounter in this room, because it will help you manage your experience a lot better. And you can usually end it in one attack with Zidane as long as you've got the Mage Masher on, which you really should. The only exception is, so there's two encounters that you can get here. You can get a Fang or a Goblin. You can kill them both in one hit. The only issue is that you can't kill Fangs if you are being back attacked. They have too much health. When you're back attacked, your rows are flipped. So Zidane is normally on the front row. When you're back attacked, he is put on the back row. Unless, of course, he is on the back row by default, then he'll be put on the front row. When you're on the back row, you deal 50% physical damage, and you receive 50% physical damage. So it's ideal for casters. You're going to find Dagger, Aiko, Quina, and often Amarant as well are left on the back row because it's only the attack command that is affected by your row. Everything else you can kill in one hit, so don't worry about it. Let's go see if we get through. Okay, so we got the encounter. Nice. This isn't too bad. You do not want to flee from this fight. If you get this fight, you want to kill it. Unless, of course, it is a back attack, in which case, flee. We're going to kill this, and it's going to net us 23 experience and 1 ability point. Both of the mobs in this part of the game give you 23 experience. It is a good idea to learn to count experience here, but it's not essential. That's going to put us onto level 2, and the reason why that's important is it means that we now get 3 actions while in trance, as opposed to 2. So when we get into the fight in a moment with Prison Cage, we are not going to see the detrance animation on turn 2 anymore. So it's not an entire time loss. It's a bit of a time loss, but it's not the worst time loss you can acquire from a random battle. This fight's nice and easy. The first turn, you're going to use Dine with Zidane. You've got as much time as you need in order to get down to that action. Because Prison Cage will be having his turn while you're selecting it. So be quick, but don't worry too much about it. It's the one time this game is fairly forgiving. So it's going to start by absorbing, and then it's going to hit with the left stem, I think. So we're going to go straight to Dine. We're going to basic attack. Now, you can, of course, attack and then Dine, but the issue with that is that if you do that, and Steiner then proceeds to miss, which he can do, your Dine will not finish the plant brain, and you will lose time. So by going for a Dine, you're covering yourself against whether or not Steiner misses or not. If Steiner then proceeds to miss, you will need to use another free energy. If he doesn't miss, you can then proceed to use a basic attack and proceed and finish the fight in normal pace. So I'm going to do a little save state here so I can show you something. We'll fast forward through this turn. Then he's going to swing. Nice. Connected. So he's going to have his turn with this right stem here. If you're really quick, you can actually skip him from having an additional turn. This prison cage is actually really fast. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to take a while to choose this option here. So he's got a left turn. Yeah, see that? Left stem came out. If we rewind really quickly, and we go back, and I enter this attack in really quickly, we can actually stop him from doing that left stem. Again, it's only about 3 seconds, but it is something that you can avoid. So, on to the second part of this fight. This fight is incredibly linear. You attack twice and then steal once with Zidane, and then attack with Steiner. If at any point anyone misses during this encounter, you do not do the steal. So I'll fast forward a little bit through this fight because it's fairly linear. You can low roll as well, so if you pay attention to your numbers after... Oh, we missed. Perfect. All right. Incredible. I don't really want to miss there, so I'm going to try and get a new RNG pointer because I want to steal the broadsword so I can show you the menu correctly. So I'm going to let my RNG pointer move a little bit by letting that flow. Hopefully we don't miss again, smile. So during this first turn, you'll notice that some runners don't immediately queue their ability. And that's because you can never get in front of Prison Cage here. And what you don't want to do is slow down the time it takes for him to have his turn. So by just waiting for him to have his turn, you're not actually changing the course of the battle at all by queuing your abilities then. Nice. Okay, so we got a high roll off Steiner there, so we don't need to worry about it. Steiner low rolls I think of 48, and Zidane low rolls 84, I believe. If you see a bunch of 84s from Zidane, you can continue to underroll. All right, cool. So that's 2 attacks, and then we're gonna steal. I really want to get broadsword here. All right, whatever. Yeah, so again, if you miss with a basic attack, don't steal. Don't worry about it. You can make it up. It's not the end of the world. Getting the sword is a 70-something% steal rate, I believe. It's the highest one. You're very favorable to get the irons, the broadsword. Leather wrist is useful in certain ways. In fact, actually, it's interesting that we've got on it because I can show you what it does to your inventory and things like that. The broadsword is like the de facto, the basic thing that you should be getting. Yeah, once you finish talking with Baku, you're going to head down there. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. There was an ether in that room in the chest. You want to make sure you pick that up. Don't miss that ether. It's good. You're going to need it. You will always need that ether, no matter what. That is a surefire ether. You will need that money. And then again, when you go in here, hold down left and grab this chest too. There's another ether in there. So even with nobles, you need those ethers. So head into this fight to initiate a fight with Baku. So something that you can do here, if you're feeling particularly lucky, is that you can equip a leather wrist by optimizing Zidane and enabling yourself to crit. It's not essential on PC because this was a bug that was fixed in the port. You can crit without the leather wrist, but in PSX, at a lower level, you cannot do critical hits with Zidane or anyone else, I believe, until you've put the leather wrist on, because of your spirit value not being high enough to achieve the minimum threshold. I'm not going to do that, because the reason why is if you've got the leather wrist on during this early game, you'll actually gain ability points on the ability Beast Killer, and then you'll have to manually unequip it later. So really easy fight. Just attack him 3 times. If he does manage to get like good swings on you and stuff, then you got to be careful. If you didn't kill an encounter in the first screen, you'll notice that your HP will be, I believe, this value instead, 101 or 105. So the fight can be a little bit riskier, but he's still not quite managed to kill me. He can miss as well, so it's he can get you. He can get you. If you keep missing on him, for example, he will kill you. So be careful. It's always 3 attacks. If you crit him, it saves a turn. So it's an unnecessary menu. Yeah. You're banking on a 2% chance in the first 2 swings. Like, it's incredibly slim. You can go for it. It's up to you. It's one of those things, isn't it? It costs you 3 seconds to potentially save 10. Okay, so an optimization that I've come into contact with while running this game is that if you get 99 nobles and steal the broadsword, you don't need to pick up this ether. If you get less and you steal the broadsword or you steal the leather wrist, then you're going to have to learn to count gil before you can skip this ether, because it becomes incredibly sketchy. Because I got like 400 gil from nobles, I'm going to make this so much easier on myself and just fucking pick the bastard up. It does say you lose most time picking up that ether over the others because of the load times involved in it. It's up to you. But if you don't get 100 nobles and you definitely didn't steal the broadsword, I would recommend just picking it up until you're more familiar with the way that gil looks in the early sections of this game. So, more mashing coming through here. And then we're going to proceed through Evil Forest. It's down right through this room, into a right, into an up. Nice. Okay, so if you want to get technical with this stuff and you want to pay attention, what we need to do is we need to make sure that Zidane achieves at least level 3 by the time that we get to Sea Lion. That isn't to say that you can't kill Sea Lion at level 2, but you will either need to rely on a set of extremely lucky, well, not extremely lucky, a set of lucky rolls, or you'll need to rely on fast trance build against Sea Lion. Both will lose you time more than you save time by not killing things. Because we killed the encounter in that first screen, it is actually impossible for us to not be able to achieve the minimum experience required. In the notes that I'm going to put in the YouTube videos as well, I'm going to include EXP values for all of this sort of stuff. So don't worry about committing it to memory, but I would definitely include this stuff in the notes that you are following, wherever they may be. So I'm currently on 23 experience with Zidane and 1 ability point towards the ability Protect Girls, which is something that I do want to learn. I want to achieve 3 ability points before Sea Lion, ideally, so that I don't need to apply a backup in order to get the ability points I do need. Protect Girls. So this is a goblin. If everyone kills this in 1 hit, VV Fire is the slowest way to kill this thing. So if VV's ATB is only marginally better than Steiner or Zidane's, I am not going to use it. If it has its turn first before anyone else, I'm not going to use it. If VV's ATB is like considerably better than everyone else's, I will use it. Yeah. So I'm going to just wait for this turn to come up, and it's not looking good. There is an argument to hold quick flee during all of this sort of stuff. It is entirely up to you how you want to manage all this sort of stuff. Again, these are the ways that you'll have to define what risks you want to take. But for now, I'm just going to take that. Zidane's now got 2 ability points and 30 experience points. He needs 17 more to hit level 3. And unfortunately, we got 2 encounters on this screen. So we're going to be pretty swamped today, but it shouldn't be a problem. So because I've got enough experience, really, I'm going to just hold flee here. And if I get the quick flee, I get the quick flee. Something to note is that you can only gain... Actually, we should talk about this first. So the way that quick fleas work in this game is that every second that it is not their turn, that you're holding L1 and R1, you gain a flee check. The flee check is a mathematical formula that is put including your level and theirs, and a random number, obviously, thrown together into an algorithm that says whether or not you have successfully achieved a flee. In the earlier sections of the game, and the sections of the game where you proceed through lower level areas, your flee chance is much higher. In the end game, like Disc 4, your flee chance is very low. So during that section, I was holding L1 and R1, and then Goblin had its turn. As soon as it had its turn, there's no point holding flee anymore. You're not able to earn flee checks during their turn. So you can use certain techniques like using the change ability or the defend. In certain later sections of the game, we even use summons to gain a lot of flee checks because some animations are so long. But we'll talk more about them later. So I didn't get my flee check, so I'm just going to go ahead and kill it. Nice. So Zidane's now got all 3 of his ability points towards protect goals, and he has gained another 7 experience. So we're on 37. So we need 10. The minimum amount of experience you get from the forced plant spiders encounter at the end is 11. So we no longer need to worry about experience points for Zidane. So we are free to flee from all of these encounters now. Okay, so one of the other encounters you can get in this zone is a Fang and a Goblin. Zidane is the only one that's able to kill Fangs in one attack. Steiner can kill Goblins in one attack. Fire always kills all of these enemies. The only other encounter which we might see is called a Dendrobium, which we'll talk about if we see it in a moment. So if Vivi's ATB is really good here, I'll just use Fire All to end the fight quickly. If they start having turns, I will probably just wait for Zidane to come round and cast Flee. We don't need any more experience points here. So hopefully Zidane goes first. I'm also going to hold Quick Flee. Not very good, so I'm going to... Yeah, I'm just going to wait for Zidane to come back round here rather than casting Fire. You only really want to be using the Fire All menu if A, you need the experience for whatever reason, or B, it stops them from having turns. You're going to hear me saying that a lot. Stopping them from having turns is crucial. So you want to dip through onto the left here. So in certain areas of the game, you can do what's called splitting the screen. Like I said earlier, distance traveled governs your encounter rate. So whenever you pass into a new screen, your danger value is reset. So by resetting that screen, by coming out and going back in, you reset your danger value halfway through, but you get an encounter anyway because it's Final Fantasy IX. I believe that check is around 10%. It goes down from like 50 to 60%, all the way down to 10. How do you do Fire All? Oh, good question. So when you're selecting fire, if you press L1 or R1, you'll notice that the cursor does that little split thing. So it's only with certain magical abilities can you do area of effect. Good question, Jack. Thank you for that. Okay, forced ATE, a little bit of dialogue here. You can just hold upright to leave this screen. And then in the next screen as well, you also just hold upright. There's nothing special going here. So if we don't see it, the last mob that you can fight is a Dendrobium. It's like a big pink flower. The only way that you can kill it in one hit effectively is by using Steiner's magic sword. Obviously Vivi needs to be alive, so pay attention to that. Alright, and we're out. Okay, gonna do a little save state here. So Plant Brain is actually another really cool boss. He's got a special mechanic that relies on Zidane's HP. This strategy doesn't unfortunately work on HD very well. Maybe if you're an absolute god you can get it to work, but because of the way that ATB works in PC, it's exceptionally hard to get it right. So, before we go any further, Plant Brain has an infinite HP pool until blank enters the fight. And the way that blank enters the fight is by Zidane either being reduced to critical or 0 HP. The easiest way to manage that is by having Zidane attack himself. However, the first thing that Plant Brain will always do, as long as Zidane is alive, is cast Pollen on your party, which is AoE blind. It has an incredibly high hit rate. It can miss, so if you're very adept, you can pay attention to whether or not it missed your characters. But I wouldn't. I would just use the normal strategy, which we'll go over in a moment. As soon as Zidane's HP is reduced to 0, the fight is paused. Everyone's ATB is suspended and held exactly where it is, and then blank will enter the fight with full ATB. Your cursor will return to the point where it was previously. So while you're setting up blank entering the screen, you can put your cursor in all the right places to make this fight easier to manage. Once blank has entered, the way that we're going to kill this encounter is by having blank attack twice and then having Steiner attack with a fire sword. The way that we do that is that blank once again is able to ATB weight this boss, and he's able to have 2 turns. So it's going to go blank, fire sword, blank in that order. The way this fight usually goes is that usually 1 or 2 of more of your characters' ATBs aren't very good. The worst case scenario is that he does his pollen and VV's ATB or Steiner's ATB isn't filled by the end of the pollen animation. If you go in with Z already dead, does blank appear right away? No. You have to resurrect him and then kill him. It's very slow. Don't do it. Make sure that Z goes into this encounter without critical HP. He has to be healthy, or else you'll probably die. Okay, so I'm going to do another save state here so I can hopefully talk through this fight. So hopefully at least Steiner and VV have good ATB. VV's ATB is not great. I'm going to go to Steiner and set up the magic sword cursor. Okay, so I'm going to do another little save state here, but I'm going to go for the regular strategy. I'll hopefully be able to talk about this afterwards. So I'll switch to VV, wait for him to have his turn. The pollen's already happening, so I'm going to cue fire on Zidane, and then I'm going to hold with Steiner like this. Okay? Don't worry about Zidane's turn at all. You can leave him completely. And then I'm going to squeak VV through. VV is going to successfully kill Zidane here because it never misses. This is the tricky bit. So when blank comes in, it's going to put the cursor on Steiner. But what I need to do is I need to quickly switch to blank, cue his attack, and then come back to Steiner and hold ATB. Again, this is going to require some practice. I wouldn't recommend... I mean, by all means, go for it on your first run, but it can go wrong. Be careful. So I'm going to press triangle, X, X, X in that order, and hopefully I get it. So what you can see is that VV's ATB has only just grown. He has a tiny bit of ATB. This is good. This is the sort of ATB you want to see. If he has more than that, things can start to get a bit hairy. So I'm going to release ATB and open it again really quickly to have blank have his turn. Wait for his ATB to reset, and then cue fire sword. Because blank is faster, blank's turn should come back round. I'm going to start mashing X. And blank finishes the fight. Perfect. So I'll do another save state so that I progressed. So the situation that we had here before this fight happened is that Plant Brain still hasn't had his turn, and I have access to all of my ATBs. This is where you're able to take a risk. I wouldn't recommend doing this on your first couple runs. I would recommend having a go with this, or only ever going for it if all 3 of your party members start with incredibly high ATB. The issue with this is that when Zidane is dead... I'll move the cursor. Must be on steel. Yeah. So the issue with this is that once Zidane dies, Plant Brain can start doing whatever he wants, which means that he can instantly kill VV, which can stop your combination happening with Fire Sword and all sorts of other nonsense. And if that happens, you can actually just die from it. But what you want to do is you want to then do a Fire Sword, and then attack with blank. And that will actually kill it. So I'm going to go for it. So once he's dead, I should just be able to start mashing X, because I've put the cursor on Black Magic, and I put the cursor on Magic Sword in advance. And if I was quick enough... No, I wasn't. See that? So he had his turn. He had his turn. It was too tight. The ATBs weren't very good. It would have been a miracle if I got it through. Luckily, he didn't punish me. It's worth noting that this is only faster if he doesn't have a turn. The only reason you're doing this is to stop him from having any turns whatsoever. But the most important one that you should go for is casting fire on Zidane and then having blank attack twice. If you're playing on PC, you don't actually have a choice but to use Zidane to kill himself if you want to go for this strategy at all, really. Because of the way that ATB flows in PC, it's more analog. Like on PSX, it's got like real defined notches in the ATB, and it's easier to manipulate. But on HD, you'll notice that ATB flows like really smoothly, and it can make getting that weight off incredibly challenging, especially considering how unresponsive the menus are. Right, so the first menu's coming up here. You want to mash into your menu straight away. The first thing that you want to do is pick up Zidane. Actually, I'm going to reload this save where I killed him and everyone's got blind on him, because this is a scenario that you're expecting to see. We'll fast forward through. Keep pressing triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and heal Zidane. Get him back up. And then don't be afraid to use these remedies, but I would only use one. You want to use the eye drops that you've got as well. If you kill mobs, they can drop eye drops during this section, so hopefully you'll have an extra one. If you stole the broadsword, you're going to go ahead and give it to Blank to take the iron sword off of him. If you didn't, like we didn't, you're just going to steal his silk shirt instead. Shift over to Zidane by pressing R1 and optimizing him. I'm going to remove the leather wrist manually and pretend that we don't have it, because I don't want to mess around with criticals on C-line. You can leave it on. I'll explain what it does in the C-line split in a moment. But after you've done that, you can just hold down. Then keep holding down until you get into the first plant spiders fight. So, plant spiders spawn in packs of 4 to 2. So 4, 3, or 2. And, shut up, Steph. They're worth 22 experience each. There is a chart in my notes that tell you how much experience everyone will get, depending on how many people are alive. There is no point keeping Blank alive here if you can help it. So on and so forth. It is also worth noting that both Zidane and Blank can ATB weight these encounters. So I'm just going to hold ATB with Blank here so I can talk about this fight. So our Zidane, we have noted that he has received 37 experience. He needs 10, which means that if I actually look at my notes, I don't know what I can do here. I think if I just kill them, I get 11. So yeah, 2 spiders, 4 ways is 11 experience each. So if VV's ATB was really, really good, in fact, it is still quite good. What I'm going to do here to try and end this fight without letting them have as many turns as possible is suiciding Blank and then just casting Fire All. There are many, 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 many ways. And the abilities on Steiner, aha, that's true. So because I didn't steal the broadsword, I didn't do any of that stuff. I forgot about that. Yeah, okay. So if you stole the broadsword, you'd then proceed to optimize Steiner and using his abilities. That's correct. I will load a save state in a moment and talk about that, and I'll splice that together for the YouTube. So with Blank here, I'm just gonna go ahead and suicide Blank, and then Fire All with VV. This fight again can be really hard to optimize and is incredibly dependent on how much experience you need, how much you have, and how much you're willing to gamble, and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, what you're prioritizing is stopping them from having turns. Because when they cast Thunder, you lose about 10 seconds. But that should end the fight nice and quickly. Perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to do really quickly is load a menu where we've actually got the broadsword. Good. Okay, so this is another save that I've got from my own states from where everything went correctly. So I'll go ahead and just do this again. So you take give Blank the broadsword so that you can take his iron sword. Remove his silk shirt. You want to be using wrapping as much as you can to get around with fewer inputs. You'll optimize Dan to give him the silk shirt. Proceed over to Steiner, optimize him to give him the iron sword. Press square, go to equips, and then you can press right to enter in one input. So for abilities, obviously up, down, left, and right take you where they expect you to. But on the right side of the screen, if you press right, it actually goes down and left one. So you can make one input do two. So if I press down and right, I'll actually head down two inputs. So like, you see how I'm ending up underneath Bug Killer by pressing down and right there, or on Bug Killer if I press right. Little things that you can do to save inputs. So let's go back to where we were.